A maid's daughter stood at a bus stop with $5 in her pocket and nothing left to spare. She had no idea the stranger beside her would change her life forever. The bus hissed to a stop. The driver barely looked up. No pay, no ride. The elderly woman hesitated, confused, clutching her empty purse. The door stayed shut. Cold air wrapped around her thin coat. 12-year-old Maya watched from the curb, her chest tightening. In her pocket sat her last $5, money meant for milk, bread, survival. Once it was gone, there was nothing left. The driver's hand moved to close the door. The woman swayed, lost, humiliated. Maya didn't think. She stepped forward. Her foot jammed into the bus door. Her hand dropped the coins into the box. The door slammed shut behind them. Maya didn't know she had just saved a billionaire. She only knew she couldn't look away. Before we continue, take a moment to tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the rest of this story and the ones still to come. Maya Carter stood at the edge of Crestwood like she was balanced on an invisible line no one else could see. It was late afternoon, just after 5, when the lights softened and the big houses behind the iron gates began to glow from the inside. The street was wide and clean, lined with maple trees that dropped their leaves politely onto manicured lawns. Everything here looked deliberate, controlled. Even the wind seemed careful as it moved through the branches. Maya shifted her weight from one sneaker to the other and checked the old digital watch on her wrist. 5:38 p.m. The number 22 bus was supposed to come at 5:40. It usually did, unless it decided not to. Her nails dug into the plastic handles, a slit side. Her other hand hovered instinctively near her chest, where a thin silver chain rested beneath her t-shirt. The metal felt cool against her skin. Dog tags, her grandfather's. She touched them the way some kids touched lucky coins or crosses, without thinking, but never forgetting. Behind her, the Blackwood house loomed just beyond the wrought iron gate. Stone walls, tall windows, a fountain that kept running even in the middle of drought warnings. Maya had slipped out through the service entrance 10 minutes earlier, heart racing the entire time, half expecting someone to catch her. She wasn't supposed to be there. The Blackwoods didn't like children. They didn't like noise. They didn't like reminders that the people who cleaned their house had lives outside of it, especially not children of the help. But Maya's mom had hurt her back last week, a sharp twist while lifting a couch because Mrs. Blackwood decided the rug looked better just a few inches over. Maya had watched her mother's face go tight, watched her jaw set the way it did when pain had to be swallowed. So Maya came after school. She always did when things got bad. She scrubbed baseboards on her knees, dusted high shelves using a step stool she wasn't supposed to touch. She worked quietly, fast, listening for footsteps, keeping one ear trained on the hallway. Her mother handled the heavy vacuuming, moving slower than usual, biting back groans. It was a secret, one they couldn't afford to get caught keeping. Now, Maya stood at the bus stop at the very edge of Crestwood, the last stop before the road dipped toward the west side. The bench sat under a flickering street lamp, the light buzzing softly as if it might give up at any moment. She sat down, careful not to tear the bag, and pulled her jacket tighter around herself. It was a thin denim jacket, the kind that worked fine when you kept moving, but didn't do much once the sun started sinking. Maya stood beside the bus stop sign, backpack slung over one shoulder, a thin plastic grocery bag cutting into her wrist. She kept her body still, the way she'd learned to do in places where you weren't supposed to take up space. The wrought iron gates behind her rose taller than she was, guarding a mansion she'd just slipped out of minutes earlier through the side door no one ever used unless they worked there. She checked her watch. 5:36 p.m. Too early to panic, too late to relax. The bag in her hand rustled when the wind picked up. Inside were her mother's work clothes, black uniform, white apron, still damp at the cuffs. The smell of cleaning solution clung to everything, sharp and familiar. Maya had scrubbed baseboards on her knees for nearly 2 hours, careful not to leave fingerprints on the glossy walls, careful not to be seen. Her mom had insisted she shouldn't be there, but her back had gone out again, and pain didn't clean floors. So Maya did. She always did. Her fingers drifted to her chest, slipping beneath her shirt to touch the cool metal resting there. 2 thin dog tags pressed against her skin, steady as a heartbeat. Her grandfather's, Sergeant James Carter. When things felt unbalanced, she held on to them. It reminded her that someone in her family had once mattered to the world. The bus stop sat at the very edge of Crestwood, like a checkpoint between two different lives. On one side, perfect lawns and tall windows. On the other, the road sloped downward toward the west side, where buildings crowded together and the air smelled like concrete and exhaust. Maya preferred the west side, at least it didn't pretend. She turned slightly, scanning the bench beneath the flickering street lamp. That's when she noticed the woman. She hadn't heard her arrive. She hadn't seen her sit down. The woman was simply there, sitting stiffly at the far end of the bench, hands folded tight in her lap, eyes fixed on the street like she was waiting for something she wasn't sure would come. She didn't belong here. Maya knew that the same way she knew when a storm was coming before the clouds showed up. Her coat was expensive, though worn at the sleeve. Her shoes were polished but scuffed. Her silver hair was pinned up neatly, but loose strands escaped and brushed her face in the wind. She looked like someone who usually had a plan and had just lost it. Maya looked away, pretending to be interested in the road. Staring made people uncomfortable. She knew that too. A moment passed, then another. Then the woman's hands began to move, first to her coat pocket, then the other, then her lap. Her eyes darted down to the concrete, scanning the ground near her feet. Her movements grew quicker, more frantic. Her breathing changed. Maya sighed quietly to herself and turned. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Maya asked. The woman startled as if she'd been pulled out of deep water. She looked at Maya, eyes sharp but clouded with something close to fear. "My bag," she said. "I had a handbag. I set it right here." Maya glanced at the empty bench. "I don't see it." "I must have left it somewhere," the woman said, voice thinning. "I went for a walk. The trees were beautiful. I didn't mean to go so far." She pressed her lips together, embarrassed. "I must have put it down when I rested." "Do you want me to check?" Maya asked, shifting her weight forward. "No," the woman said quickly. "No, I couldn't ask that. And my legs," she shook her head, "they won't cooperate anymore today." She looked up at the street sign, then at the houses, her confusion deepening. "I don't recognize this place." Crestwood did that to people. It looked welcoming until you realized nothing here was meant for you. "The bus goes to the station," Maya said gently. "You can get help there." Relief flickered across the woman's face, then faded. "I don't have my wallet, or my phone." Before Maya could respond, a deep mechanical growl rolled through the quiet street. The number 22 bus appeared around the corner, big and loud and completely out of place. Its brakes screeched as it pulled up to the curb, shattering Crestwood's careful silence. The doors hissed open. The driver leaned forward, eyes already irritated. "Let's go," he snapped. "I'm running late." The woman stood slowly and approached the steps, steadying herself before looking up at him. "Sir," she said, voice polite but strained, "I seem to have misplaced my purse. If you could just take me to the station." "No pay, no ride." The words hit harder than they needed to. "I'm not asking for charity. I'm simply trying to get home." $3, the driver said flatly. "Or step aside." The woman froze, not just embarrassed, stunned, like she wasn't used to being spoken to that way. She stepped back onto the curb, shoulders folding inward. "I understand," she murmured. The driver reached for the lever. The doors began to close. "Wait!" Maya stepped forward before her brain could catch up. She shoved her foot between the doors, heart pounding, pulse roaring in her ears. "Hey!" the driver barked. Maya reached into her pocket. Her fingers brushed the crumpled bill, the coins, $5, everything she had left. She swallowed hard, pulled it out, and dropped it into the fare box. The sound of the coins echoed in the bus. "That's for both of us," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. The driver grunted. "Sit down." Maya turned back and held out her hand. "It's okay. You can ride." The woman stared at her hand, eyes glistening, then took it, her fingers cold and trembling. And just like that, Maya Carter stepped fully off the invisible line between two worlds. The bus doors shuddered as they slid shut behind them, sealing off Crestwood like it was another country altogether. Maya moved down the aisle with the woman close beside her, the plastic grocery bag bumping against her knee with every step. The bus smelled like warm metal, old seats, and something fried that had soaked into the floor years ago and never left. It was familiar, comforting in a rough way. The driver hadn't taken his eyes off them. "Next time," he said loudly, pulling the bus back into traffic, "you don't block my doors. That's how people get hurt." Maya didn't answer. She guided the woman toward an empty pair of seats near the middle, helping her sit before sliding in beside her. The woman's hands trembled as she smoothed her coat over her knees. "I'm so sorry," the woman whispered, leaning close so no one else could hear. "I never meant to put you in that position." Maya shrugged, trying to make it seem smaller than it was. "It's okay." It wasn't, but saying that wouldn't help either of them. The bus lurched forward, tires humming as Crestwood's clean streets gave way to cracked asphalt and uneven lanes. A few passengers glanced up, then went back to their phones or the window. No one said anything. No one ever did. The woman folded her hands together, knuckles pale. That was my fare, Maya thought, but she didn't let it show on her face. $5 meant something different depending on where you came from. For some people, it was spare change. For her, it was milk, maybe eggs if prices hadn't gone up again. Her stomach tightened, already doing the math. "I'm Maya," she said instead. The woman turned, startled, as if she'd forgotten she wasn't alone. "Oh, She paused, eyes flicking toward the front of the bus. "I'm Eleanor." Maya nodded. "Nice to meet you." Eleanor studied her for a moment, her gaze landing on Maya's scuffed sneakers, the stretched grocery bag, the faint streak of dust still clinging to her sleeve. "You shouldn't have done that," Eleanor said softly. "You're a child." Maya lifted one shoulder. "I'm 12. That's not that little." Eleanor gave a sad smile. "It is when the world starts asking things it shouldn't." Maya didn't know how to respond to that, so she looked out the window instead. The houses grew closer together, the lawns shrinking, the sidewalks cracked and patched. A liquor store replaced a boutique, a check-cashing place replaced a yoga studio. The driver hit a pothole too hard, and the bus jolted. "Watch it," someone muttered from the back. The driver didn't respond. A few stops passed in silence. Eleanor's foot tapped nervously against the floor. "Do you know where you're going?" Maya asked. Eleanor hesitated. "I think so. There's a station downtown. I can call my son from there." "Your son?" Maya repeated. "Yes," Eleanor said, as if grounding herself in the word. "He'll be worried." The bus slowed as it approached a red light. The driver glanced in the mirror again, his eyes lingering on Eleanor. "You," he barked, pointing. "You get off at the station." Eleanor stiffened. "That's what I intend to do." "No funny business," he added. "I don't need trouble today." Maya's jaw tightened. She said nothing, but her fingers curled around the edge of the seat. When the light turned green, the bus surged forward again. Eleanor leaned closer. "Thank you," she said, her voice breaking just slightly. "I won't forget this." Maya swallowed. "It's fine." But as the bus rattled toward the west side, the weight of what she'd done settled heavy in her chest. $5 gone, dinner uncertain, another night of her mom pretending she wasn't hungry so Maya could eat first. Maya stared straight ahead, lips pressed together, and told herself she'd figure it out like she always did. She always did. The bus roared on, carrying two lives that weren't supposed to cross, deeper into a part of the city where kindness cost more than money, and where Maya Carter had just paid the price without knowing what it would buy her in return. The bus jerked hard as it pulled away from the curb, and this time the driver didn't let it go. "You think that was cute?" he snapped, voice slicing through the low hum of the engine. "Blocking my doors like that?" Maya stayed facing forward. Her legs barely reached the edge of the seat, feet swinging an inch above the floor, but her spine was straight. She'd learned early that shrinking didn't make people kinder, it just made them bolder. "I paid," she said. "That's the rule, right?" A few heads turned. Someone coughed. Someone else shifted uncomfortably. The driver's eyes met hers in the mirror, cold, measuring. "The rule is don't cause problems," he said, "and you caused one." Eleanor flinched beside her. "Please," she said, her voice calm but strained. "She was only helping me." The driver laughed once, sharp and humorless. "Funny how it's always only helping." The bus swerved slightly as he accelerated, forcing a woman standing near the back to grab a pole. "Hey," someone muttered. Maya's heart pounded, but she didn't look away. "You already got your money," she said, "so can you just drive?" For a moment, it felt like the bus itself was holding its breath. Then the driver leaned back in his seat and snorted. Kids these days think they run the world. He didn't stop the bus. Eleanor let out a shaky breath she'd clearly been holding. Her gloved hand found Maya's arm. fingers light, almost unsure she was allowed to touch. "I'm so sorry," she whispered again. "That man, he was cruel." Maya shrugged, though her chest felt tight. "He's like that with everyone." That wasn't entirely true, but it felt easier than explaining. They rode in silence for a few blocks. The city outside the windows shifted into something grayer, louder. Sirens in the distance. A corner store with bars on the windows. A group of teenagers arguing near a bus shelter, their laughter sharp-edged. Eleanor watched it all with wide eyes. "This isn't my route," she said softly, more to herself than to Maya. "I don't recognize any of this." "It's okay. The station's coming up." Eleanor nodded, then frowned. "I don't even remember how I ended up walking so far," she admitted. "I was just trying to clear my head. Things have been confusing lately." "You get lost a lot?" Eleanor hesitated. "Not usually." A pause. "At least, not before." The bus slowed abruptly, then stopped again. The driver glanced back. "Station's next," he called. "Make sure you're ready." Eleanor's hands tightened around the strap of a purse that wasn't there. Panic flickered across her face, quick and bright. "My son," she said suddenly. "What if I can't reach him? What if he's not there?" Maya didn't answer right away. She dug into her backpack and pulled out a folded scrap of paper and a pencil with the eraser worn to nothing. "You can write his number or his name if something happens." Eleanor stared at the paper like it was a lifeline. "That's very wise of you." Maya gave a small smile. "My mom says you plan for the worst so it doesn't surprise you." The bus lurched again, brakes squealing as it pulled into the station. The doors hissed open. Eleanor stood slowly, knees stiff, then turned to Maya. Her eyes were wet now, no longer sharp, no longer composed. "I'm so sorry," she said. Maya shook her head. "You don't have to." Eleanor reached out anyway, squeezing Maya's hand with surprising strength. "You already paid," she said, "more than you realize." The driver cleared his throat loudly. "Let's move it." Eleanor stepped off the bus, pausing just long enough to look back one last time. Maya watched her disappear into the crowd, swallowed by noise and motion and uncertainty. The doors closed. The bus pulled away. Maya leaned back against the seat, exhaustion rushing in all at once. Her pocket felt lighter, her stomach felt emptier, and yet something about her chest felt heavier too, like she'd crossed another invisible line she couldn't step back over. Outside, the city rushed past. Inside, Maya Carter rode on, carrying the quiet weight of a choice she hadn't planned to make, and a stranger she wasn't sure she'd ever forget. Maya watched the station swallow Eleanor whole. The bus hadn't even cleared the intersection yet, but Maya was already twisting in her seat, craning her neck to see through the dirty rear window. The terminal loomed gray and crowded, people spilling in and out through sliding doors, voices layered on top of each other until they blurred into one restless sound. Eleanor stood just inside the entrance, too still. She looked small now, smaller than she had on the bench, smaller than she had on the bus. Her posture, once so careful, so practiced, had softened, like it couldn't hold itself up anymore. She clutched the folded scrap of paper Maya had given her, turning it over in her hands as if hoping the answer might appear on the other side. Maya's chest tightened. She told herself to face forward, to mind her own business, to remember her mom waiting at home, probably sitting on the edge of the couch with an ice pack pressed to her lower back, pretending she was fine. But the image wouldn't let go. The bus rolled on, another block, then another. Maya stood up so suddenly her knee knocked into the seat in front of her. "Hey," someone complained. She didn't sit back down. "Driver," she called, gripping the metal pole. "You gotta stop." The driver glanced up, already irritated. "Sit down, kid." "You passed my stop," Maya lied. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. "You gotta let me off." He cursed under his breath and slammed the brakes at the next corner. The bus lurched. "Make it quick," he snapped, popping the doors. Maya jumped down the steps before he could change his mind. The doors hissed shut behind her, and the bus pulled away without a second glance. She stood there for a moment, heart pounding, the grocery bag swinging wildly from her wrist. Then she turned and ran. The station smelled like diesel fuel and old coffee. Announcements echoed overhead, cutting in and out. Maya pushed through the crowd, scanning faces, fear building with every step. She spotted Eleanor near a ticket machine, staring at it like it had personally betrayed her. "Eleanor!" Maya called. The Terman turned, eyes wide with relief and something close to shame. "Oh," she breathed. "You didn't have to come back." Maya stopped in front of her, hands on her knees, trying to catch her breath. "You don't know how to use those," she said, nodding toward the machine. Eleanor's lips trembled. "I keep pressing the wrong thing." And you don't have your phone, Eleanor nodded slowly, or my wallet, or any idea where I'm supposed to go. Maya closed her eyes for half a second. This was a terrible idea. Every part of her knew it. Her mom would panic. They didn't have space. They didn't have food. They didn't have time for problems that weren't theirs. But Eleanor stood there, lost and exposed, in a place that ate people alive when they didn't know the rules. You can't stay here, Maya said quietly. I know, Eleanor replied. I'll figure something out. Maya opened her eyes and met Eleanor's gaze. You won't, she said, surprising even herself. Not tonight. Eleanor blinked. What do you mean? Maya took a breath so deep it hurt. You're coming with me. The woman blinked. With you? To my house, just for tonight. Tomorrow we'll find your son, or the police, or something. Eleanor shook her head immediately. I can't impose on you like that. You're not imposing, though the word felt thin. You'd be stranded here. That's worse. Eleanor studied her face, really looked this time. The stubborn set of Maya's jaw, the worry she wasn't hiding very well, the exhaustion in her eyes. You're very brave, Eleanor said softly. Maya snorted. I'm not. I'm just bad at walking away. After a long moment, Eleanor nodded. Just tonight, she agreed. They left the station together, stepping back into the noise and uneven sidewalks of the west side. The sun had dipped low, painting everything in dull gold and shadow. As they walked, Eleanor stayed close, her hand occasionally brushing Maya's sleeve like she was afraid of getting lost again. Maya led the way without thinking, turning corners she knew by heart, passing places that told her story without asking permission. Her apartment building came into view, brick worn thin, windows patched, graffiti half scrubbed off the front wall. Eleanor slowed. This is where you live? She asked. Yeah, Maya said. 3rd floor, no elevator. Eleanor smiled faintly. I think I can manage. Maya pushed open the heavy door. She didn't know what would happen next. She only knew that she couldn't leave Eleanor behind, and that whatever crossed paths with her life tonight was about to step all the way inside. The apartment smelled like boiled rice and cleaning solution. Maya noticed it the moment she pushed the door open, even before the light flickered on. It was the smell of trying to stretch something small into something that would last. The living room was barely big enough for the couch, the wobbly coffee table, and the narrow path between them. One wall was stacked with mail, some opened, most not. Mom? Maya called. Her voice echoed too loudly in the tight space. Eleanor stepped in behind her, hesitating at the doorway. She took everything in without comment. The peeling paint near the ceiling, the threadbare rug with its corners curling up, the way the furniture leaned inward like it was tired too. Maya dropped her backpack by the door and set the grocery bag on the counter. She winced when she saw it again, lighter than it should have been. From the bedroom came the slow creak of bed springs. Anna Carter emerged, moving carefully, one hand pressed against her lower back. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot that had started to fall apart, strands sticking to her damp forehead. She wore her work uniform still, black pants, black shirt, and her face was pale beneath the exhaustion. Maya? She said, confusion flickering across her features. Why are you home so early? Then she saw Eleanor. Her body stiffened instantly. Who is this? Anna asked, voice sharpening despite the fatigue. Maya stepped forward quickly. This is Eleanor. She needed help, just for tonight. Anna's gaze moved over Eleanor in one swift, assessing glance. Not unkind, but cautious, protective. She shifted her weight, pain flashing across her face before she hit it. I'm sorry, Eleanor said at once. I didn't mean to intrude. Your daughter was incredibly kind to me. Anna's gaze dropped to Maya. Maya, she said quietly, go wash your hands. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a pause button. Maya hesitated, then nodded and disappeared into the bathroom, the door clicking shut behind her. Silence filled the apartment. Anna exhaled slowly. You look lost, Anna said to Eleanor, her tone softer now. I am, Eleanor admitted. Anna gestured toward the couch. Sit, please. Eleanor obeyed, lowering herself carefully onto the worn cushions. Anna moved to the kitchen, wincing as she bent to open a cabinet. She pulled out 2 mismatched mugs and filled them with water from the tap. She set one down in front of Eleanor. Thank you, Eleanor said, wrapping both hands around it. Anna leaned against the counter instead of sitting. The relief on her face was immediate and fleeting. Maya emerged from the bathroom and hovered near the doorway, watching. Did you eat? Anna asked her. Maya shook her head. Anna's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She opened a fridge. Inside was half a carton of milk, a plastic container with rice, and a few condiments. She stared for a moment, then closed it gently. I'll heat the rice. You don't have to, Eleanor said quickly. We do, Anna replied, not unkindly. It's fine. Maya knew that tone. It meant it wasn't. Anna moved stiffly, every step measured. She turned on the stove, then paused, one hand gripping the counter as pain rippled through her back. Maya took a step forward instinctively. I'm okay, Anna said, without turning around. She wasn't. Eleanor watched quietly, her expression changing, not pity, but recognition. She glanced at the stack of mail, at the calendar on the wall with red circles around certain dates, rent, utilities, past due. The rice warmed slowly, the apartment filled with the soft sound of simmering. Anna finally sat, lowering herself with care. She pressed a hand to her side, breath shallow. You're back? Eleanor asked gently. I nodded. Herniated disc, or that's what the clinic thinks. A bitter smile touched her lips. I'll know for sure if I ever get an MRI. Maya looked down at her hands. That's why I went with you today, she said softly. You what? Anna's head snapped up. Maya swallowed. I helped. At the house. I cleaned. Anna closed her eyes. I told you not to, she said, exhaustion overtaking anger. If they find out... They didn't, Maya said quickly. And you couldn't lift things. I saw you. Silence settled again, heavier this time. Eleanor's eyes glistened. You shouldn't have to choose between pain and hunger. Anna laughed quietly, humorless. Yet here we are. They ate the rice slowly, dividing it carefully. No one mentioned the portions, no one mentioned the missing $5. Maya felt it anyway, like a hollow spot inside her. Anna leaned back after a few bites, face drawn. I'm sorry, she said, mostly to Maya. I tried to be home sooner. It's okay, Maya said. It wasn't, but saying that wouldn't help either. Eleanor watched the two of them, how Maya kept glancing at her mother's face, how Anna pretended not to notice, the unspoken language of people who'd learned to survive quietly. Pain, hunger, bills stacked like reminders, and in the middle of it all, a 12-year-old girl who'd spent her last $5 on a stranger without knowing how much she'd needed herself. The knock came just as Anna pushed her empty bowl away. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was firm, practiced. Knuckles that knew exactly how much force to use to make their presence felt without giving you the courtesy of surprise. Anna froze. Maya felt it immediately, the way her mother's shoulders tightened, the way her hands stilled halfway to the table. Some sounds didn't need explaining. They carried history with them. I'll get it, Maya said. No, Anna replied too quickly. She stood, pain flashing across her face before she masked it. Stay here. She walked to the door slowly, each step careful, as if speed itself might betray her. Maya watched from the edge of the living room, Eleanor seated silently on the couch, hands folded in her lap, eyes following everything. Anna opened the door. Mr. Hargreaves stood in the hallway, filling the frame like he always did. He wore the same brown coat he'd worn every time Maya could remember seeing him, the collar always turned up no matter the weather. A clipboard rested against his chest, papers clipped neatly at the top. Evening, Anna, he said, voice flat. Her name sounded different in his mouth. Smaller. Mr. Hargreave, Anna replied. He glanced past her into the apartment, eyes flicking over the furniture, the extra pair of shoes by the door, the unfamiliar woman on the couch. His gaze lingered just a second too long. You have a guest, he noted. Anna didn't answer that. I left messages, not sure if you got them. I did. I'm working on it. He nodded once, like he'd expected that answer. He lifted the top page from the clipboard and held it out. This is a formal notice. 30 days. Maya's breath caught. Anna stared at the paper but didn't take it. I told you, I'll have the rest by the end of the month. Mr. Hargreaves sighed, the sound rehearsed. You're already 2 months behind. Utilities are past due. Building management isn't flexible anymore. Neither is my spine, Anna snapped, then immediately regretted it. She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. I've worked for you for 7 years. I've never missed rent before now. He shifted his weight. I'm not disputing your history. I'm stating the situation. The hallway light buzzed overhead. Maya stepped forward despite herself. She's hurt. She can't work like before. Adults are talking. Mr. Hargreave looked down at her, surprised, then faintly annoyed. Anna placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, firm but gentle. Stay here. Maya didn't move. From the couch, Eleanor stood. Excuse me, she said. Everyone turned. She moved slowly, deliberately, until she stood a few feet behind Anna, close enough to be present but not confrontational. Her posture straightened, something old and unshakable rising up through the exhaustion. "May I ask," Eleanor asked calmly, "if there is any provision for temporary hardship?" Mr. Hargreave blinked. "And you are—" "A guest," Eleanor replied evenly, "and an observer." He frowned. "This is private business. Then you shouldn't conduct it in a doorway." The air shifted. Anna glanced back, startled. Mr. Hargreave's jaw tightened. "We have policies. So do hospitals. And yet people still get sick." Silence stretched between them. Finally, he cleared his throat and held the paper out again, closer this time. 30 days, he repeated. "After that, I can't stop what comes next." Anna took the notice. Her hand shook as she did. "Thank you," she said, barely audible. He nodded once, satisfied, and turned away, his footsteps echoing down the hallway until the sound disappeared entirely. The door closed. No one spoke. Anna stared at the paper like it might disappear if she didn't acknowledge it. Maya watched her mother's face crumble in small, quiet ways, lines deepening, lips pressing together, breath coming too shallow. Eleanor stood motionless, her eyes moving from the notice to the fridge to the stack of mail. She saw it all now. The truth wasn't dramatic. It didn't shout. It sat. It waited. It closed in slowly. Anna sank onto the couch, the paper crumpling slightly in her grip. "I'm sorry," she said again, this time to no one in particular. Maya felt something sharp twist in her chest. "It's not your fault." Anna wiped her hand. "It's always someone's fault. It's just usually the person without options." Eleanor lowered herself into the chair opposite them. For the first time since she'd entered the apartment, she looked truly shaken. Not lost, not confused, but deeply unsettled. She had been helped tonight, but she was also witnessing something else entirely. A family pressed against a wall they couldn't see past. A child carrying weight no child should carry. A mother running out of places to bend without breaking. Powerlessness filled the room, thick and suffocating. And Eleanor, the stranger who had arrived with nothing but confusion, now understood exactly what her presence had cost and how much more it might mean before the night was over. Morning arrived quietly, the way it did when there was nothing to look forward to. Gray light slipped through the thin curtains, catching on dust in the air. Maya woke to the sound of the building settling, pipes knocking, footsteps overhead, a door slamming somewhere down the hall. For a moment, she forgot about Eleanor, about the notice folded on the counter, about the empty fridge. Then she saw her. Eleanor sat at the small kitchen table, perfectly still, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. Her hair was brushed now, pinned neatly again. Her coat was folded over the back of the chair. She looked different. Not younger, exactly, but sharper, present. Anna slept on the couch, one arm draped over her eyes, the eviction notice peeking out from beneath the cushion. Maya padded into the kitchen. "Good morning," she said softly. Eleanor turned, her eyes focused immediately. No haze, no searching. She smiled. "Good morning, Maya." Maya hesitated. "Are you okay?" Eleanor nodded once. "I believe I am." I inhaled slowly. "Yesterday was frightening, but the fog has lifted." Maya didn't know what that meant, but it sounded like something good. "My mind does that sometimes, under stress. I lose track of things, places, time." She met Maya's eyes. "But it passes." Maya glanced at the counter. "My mom's still asleep." "I know," Eleanor said gently. "I tried to be quiet." She reached into the pocket of her folded coat and pulled out something small and rectangular. A phone. Maya's eyes widened. "You had that the whole time?" Eleanor smiled faintly. "Hidden pocket. I forgot about it yesterday, which should worry me more than it does." She stood, smoothing her sweater, her posture shifting subtly, straightening, steadying, like someone stepping back into themselves. "May I make a call?" she asked. Maya nodded quickly. "Yeah, of course." Eleanor dialed without hesitation. The phone rang once, twice. Then, "Mom?" The voice on the other end was male, tense, frantic. "Yes," Eleanor said, calm, certain. "It's me." Maya froze where she stood. "I told you not to walk alone," the voice said, relief breaking through the frustration. "I've been calling hospitals all night." "I know," Eleanor replied. "I'm sorry. I'm safe." There was a pause. Then, "Where are you?" Eleanor glanced around the apartment, the peeling paint, the chipped counter, the sleeping woman on the couch. "With very good people," she said. She listened, nodding slightly. "No, I don't need an ambulance. I need you to listen." Her voice sharpened, authoritative in a way Maya hadn't heard before. "I'm at an apartment on the west side. I'll give you the address." She recited it from memory. Maya's stomach flipped. "Yes," Eleanor continued. "Bring the car and some paperwork. All of it." Another pause. "No," Eleanor said firmly. "This is not optional." She ended the call and set the phone down. The room felt different now, charged. Maya swallowed. "Your son sounds important." Eleanor smiled, but there was weight behind it. "He is, but not in the way that matters today." She walked to the couch and looked down at Anna, sleeping, pain etched into every line of her body. Her gaze shifted to the notice, then to Maya. "I owe you and your mother more than thanks," Eleanor said quietly. Maya shrugged, suddenly unsure. "You don't owe us anything." Eleanor met her eyes, and for the first time, Maya felt like she was being truly seen. "I'm Eleanor Whitmore," she said. The name meant nothing to Maya, but the way Eleanor said it, without apology, without confusion, made it feel like it should. "And before this morning is over, things are going to change." The first sign that something was wrong, or different, was the sound. Engines. Not the usual West Side engines that coughed and rattled, not the buses or delivery vans that passed without ceremony. These were low, synchronized, controlled. They rolled down the street like a decision already made. Maya stood at the window, peering through a gap in the curtain. 3 black SUVs turned onto the block, followed by a dark gray sedan so polished it reflected the cracked pavement beneath it. They moved slowly, deliberately, as if the street itself were being inspected. Her stomach dropped. "Mom," she whispered, backing away from the window. "Mom, wake up." Anna stirred on the couch, wincing as she pushed herself upright. "What's wrong?" Before Maya could answer, a knock came to the door. Not Mr. Hargreaves' knock, not sharp or impatient. This one was restrained, respectful, almost cautious. Evelyn was already on her feet. "I'll handle it." Anna frowned. "Handle what?" Evelyn didn't answer. She walked to the door with calm certainty, the same posture she'd worn on the bus when she'd finally stopped apologizing for existing. She opened it. 2 men stood in the hallway, both tall, both in tailored suits that didn't belong anywhere near peeling linoleum and buzzing fluorescent lights. They moved instantly. "Mrs. Vance," the man with the folder said, voice tight with relief. "Thank God." Anna's breath caught. Maya felt like the floor had tilted slightly to one side. Eleanor nodded once. "You found us quickly. We traced your phone signal as soon as it came online. Your son is downstairs." Eleanor exhaled, the smallest release of tension. "Good." Anna stood up, gripping the back of the couch. "I'm sorry," she said, confusion bleeding into alarm. "Did you say Vance?" The name landed heavily in the room. Evelyn turned back toward them. "Maya," she said gently, "Anna, I owe you the truth." Maya's mouth felt dry. She didn't speak. She couldn't. "My name is Evelyn Vance," the woman said, "and I should never have been alone yesterday." Silence crashed down, thick and absolute. Anna's mind raced ahead before her heart could catch up. "Evelyn Vance," she repeated slowly. "As in Vance Holdings?" Evelyn inclined her head. Maya didn't know much about billionaires, but she knew that name. Everyone did. Hospitals, tech, real estate, scholarships that people fought over, buildings with glass walls and security guards, people who didn't lose purses at bus stops, people who didn't sleep on broken couches, people who didn't get told no ride without $3. A third knock sounded, this one louder, urgent. "Grandma!" A man's voice, strong, fractured with emotion. Evelyn opened the door wider. A tall man in his 40s stepped into view, his suit jacket unbuttoned, tie loose, eyes red-rimmed with exhaustion and fear. He stopped short when he saw Evelyn, then crossed the space between them in 2 strides and pulled her into a careful, desperate embrace. "Don't ever do that again," he said, voice breaking. "Do you hear me?" Evelyn rested her hand against his cheek. "I'm here, Daniel." He pulled back, scanning her face, her hands, as if checking for damage. "Are you hurt?" "No," she said. "But they are." She turned him toward the room. "This is Anna Carter," she said, "and this is Maya." Daniel followed her gaze and froze. He saw the apartment, the eviction notice on the counter, the empty fridge, the girl standing barefoot on worn carpet, shoulders tense like she was bracing for impact. "These people took me in, fed me, protected me." Her voice hardened, steel threading through silk. "After the city failed me." Daniel swallowed. "You paid for my ride," Maya said, looking at Maya, "with your last $5. Maya flinched. "I didn't—" "Yes," Evelyn said firmly, "you did." The man in the hallway shifted uncomfortably. One of them glanced at the apartment again, his face changing as understanding set in. Anna shook her head, overwhelmed. "We didn't know," she said. "We would have helped anyway." Evelyn smiled at her, soft but unyielding. "I know." She turned back to Daniel. "They are being evicted," Evelyn said simply. Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's not happening. I want it handled, quietly, fully, and I want to know why a woman with a spinal injury is still cleaning houses to survive." Daniel nodded once. "I'll make calls." "No," Evelyn said. "You'll listen." He did. Maya felt dizzy. The room felt too small for what was happening inside it. Black SUVs idled below their window. Power hummed in the air like electricity before a storm. Evelyn Vance, billionaire matriarch, empire builder, woman whose name opened doors, turned back to a 12-year-old girl from the West Side. And for the second time in less than 24 hours, Maya Carter realized the world she thought she understood was about to break open in ways she never could have imagined. The hallway outside the apartment filled with quiet, efficient movement. Daniel Vance stepped aside to make a call, his voice low and controlled, the kind that didn't need to be loud to be obeyed. One of the men in suits spoke softly into his earpiece. Another took notes, already flipping pages in that leather folder. Maya sat on the edge of the couch, hands folded tightly in her lap, watching it all unfold like she'd stepped into the wrong movie. Evelyn sat beside Anna, not across from her, beside her. "You're in pain," Evelyn said, not asking. Anna nodded. There was no point pretending now. "Every day." "And you kept working anyway." Anna let out a short, humorless laugh. "Pain doesn't pay rent." Evelyn's eyes darkened. "No, but exploitation does." There was a sharp knock at the door. This one wasn't respectful. It was hurried. Evelyn didn't move. "Come in." Mr. Hargreaves stepped inside, clipboard still clutched to his chest. His face was flushed, his eyes darting to the men in suits, the presence in the room suddenly very real. I received a call," he stammered, "about this unit." Daniel turned slowly. "Mr. Hargreave," he said, "I'm Daniel Vance." The color drained from the landlord's face. "I wasn't aware," Hargreave said quickly. "If there's been a misunderstanding—" "There has," Daniel replied evenly. "Several." He gestured to the eviction notice on the counter. "You served a 30-day notice to a tenant recovering from a documented injury?" "I followed protocol," Hargreave said. "Late rent is late rent." Evelyn spoke without raising her voice. "You own this building, don't you?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're familiar with the city's hardship protections and the temporary moratoriums tied to medical recovery." Hargreave swallowed. "Those are complicated." "Not to my attorneys," Evelyn said. Daniel slid a document across the counter. "This building has outstanding code violations, mold, faulty wiring, inadequate heating." Hargreave stared at the page. "Those were scheduled for inspection tomorrow," Daniel finished, "along with a review of your tenant practices." The room was very quiet. "I can withdraw the notice," Hargreave said quickly. "Immediately." "You already did," Evelyn replied, "in writing." One of the suited men stepped forward, placing a signed document on the counter. Hargreave stared at it, his hand trembling as he took it. "Additionally," Daniel said, "rent will be forgiven for the next 12 months. Any attempt at retaliation will be unwise." Hargreave nodded stiffly. "Of course." He backed toward the door, dignity stripped away with every step. When the door closed behind him, Maya let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. But Evelyn wasn't finished. Now, she said, turning her attention elsewhere, the Blackwoods. Anna stiffened. Evelyn looked at her gently. Tell me. Anna hesitated. Years of silence pressed down on her. They're my employers, she said finally. They know I'm injured. They don't care. They allowed your daughter to clean their home, Anna asked, his voice sharpening. Anna nodded. They didn't ask, they just looked away. Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. That house, she said, is one of ours. Anna blinked. Yours? Vance Holdings manages the property, and several others like it. Daniel was already dialing, Get me compliance, and HR. Evelyn continued, calm and precise. I want a full audit. Labor violations, child endangerment, wage theft. She opened her eyes. I want it documented. Yes, ma'am, Daniel said. Maya's head spun. Are they in trouble? She asked quietly. Evelyn looked at her. They are being held accountable. There was a difference. Anna's hands shook as she clasped them together. I don't want revenge, she said. I just want to work without hurting. I want to take care of my daughter. Evelyn turned fully toward her now. You shouldn't have to choose between dignity and survival, she said, so I'm not offering charity. She nodded to Daniel. We have a foundation, Daniel said. Healthcare, housing stability, vocational transition. Evelyn met Anna's eyes. I'm offering you a future. Anna's breath hitched. I don't know how to do anything else. You know how to work, Evelyn replied. You know how to endure. The rest can be taught. She reached into her bag and withdrew a card, placing it gently in Anna's palm. Physical therapy, surgery if needed, fully covered. Anna stared at the card, tears blurring the print. And when you're ready, Evelyn continued, a position with benefits, reasonable hours, no lifting. Maya felt something warm and unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Anna looked at her daughter, then back at Evelyn. Why? She whispered. Evelyn glanced at Maya. Because your child spent her last $5 on a stranger, and because no society survives when that kind of goodness goes unanswered. The apartment felt different now. Not bigger, not richer, but lighter. Outside, the SUVs began to pull away one by one, their engines fading into the distance. Inside, Anna Carter held an offer she never imagined existed, and Maya sat quietly beside her, still trying to understand how one small, impossible choice had reshaped everything that came after. Evelyn didn't leave right away. After the men stepped back and the apartment settled into a strange, stunned quiet, she remained seated at the small kitchen table, hands folded neatly, eyes drifting to the thin chain around Maya's neck. That metal, she said softly. May I see it? Maya hesitated. The dog tags weren't jewelry to her. They were protection, memory, proof. But something in Evelyn's voice wasn't asking to take. It was asking to remember. Maya slipped the chain over her head and placed the tags in Evelyn's palm. Evelyn's fingers froze. For a long moment, she didn't speak. She simply stared at the metal, her thumb tracing the worn letters as if they might disappear. James Carter. Her breath left her in a shaky exhale. Anna noticed the change first. You know him, she said. Evelyn nodded slowly. I do. She leaned back, the room suddenly very far away. My husband, Arthur, she began, her voice quieter now, stripped of authority. He was a young lieutenant, barely knew what he was doing. During a transport fire overseas, his vehicle went up. Ammunition, smoke, chaos. She swallowed. Everyone ran. Everyone, except one man. Maya sat forward. James Carter ran back into the fire, Evelyn continued. Arthur was pinned. His leg was crushed. James dragged him out, stayed with him until help came, refused to leave. Her eyes shone now, unguarded. Arthur lived because of him. The silence pressed in. Anna covered her mouth. My dad, he never talked about the war. Arthur talked about James, Evelyn said. Not often, but when he did, it was with reverence. He used to say everything he built, our family, the company, was borrowed time, time James gave him. She closed her hand around the tags. When Arthur died, I spent years funding memorials, hospitals, scholarships. She looked up at Maya. But I never found James Carter. I never knew what became of his family." Maya's voice was small. "He came home broken. He drank sometimes, but he loved us." "I do," Evelyn said. "That doesn't surprise me." She stood, walked to the window, then turned back with resolve settling into her posture. "This isn't charity," she said firmly. "This is repayment." She placed the tags back into Maya's hands, closing the girl's fingers around them. A life for a life, a future returned. Anna's tears fell freely now. "We didn't ask for any of this." "I know. That's why it matters." She reached into her bag again, removing a slim folder this time. "There is a trust," she said, "in James Carter's name. It will cover Maya's education, college if she wants it. Anything beyond that, her choice." Maya's eyes widened. "For me?" "For your grandfather," Evelyn said gently. "Through you." Anna shook her head, overwhelmed. "We can't ever repay you." Evelyn smiled sadly. "You already did, long before today." She paused at the door, glancing back once more at the cramped apartment, at the peeling paint and flickering light. "At some point," she said, "wealth stopped being about accumulation. It became about balance." Her gaze returned to Maya. "Your grandfather tipped the scales of my life. Today, you tipped them back." The door closed softly behind her. Maya sat there, the weight of the dog tags warm in her hands, understanding for the first time that some debts weren't measured in money, but in courage, carried across generations. Winter came quietly that year, not with panic or unpaid notices taped to doors or the dread of broken heat, but with routine. On a Tuesday afternoon in early December, Maya Carter sat at the kitchen table doing homework while a pot of soup simmered on the stove. The apartment was the same one on Pine Street, but it felt like a different place. The radiators worked now, ticking softly with warmth. The windows were sealed, the lights didn't flicker. Outside, snow gathered along the curb. Anna moved carefully, but without pain, a soft brace under her sweater, her steps unhurried. She'd been home since noon. Normal hours, paid hours. She checked the soup, smiled, and sat down across from Maya. "Spelling test tomorrow?" she asked. "Friday," Maya said, erasing a line and rewriting it neatly. "I already studied." "Of course you did." A knock came at the door. Maya jumped up, already knowing who it was. She opened it to find Mrs. Delgado from downstairs holding a folded blanket. "The new one's too warm," she said. "Figured you could use this in the living room." "Thank you," Maya said, taking it. Down the hall, workers moved steadily. New paint, new flooring, voices calm instead of angry. The building no longer felt like a place people survived. It felt like somewhere they lived. Later that evening, Anna and Maya walked to the corner store together, not to calculate, not to choose between milk or bread. They bought both. On the walk home, Maya stopped at the same bus stop where everything had changed months earlier. The bench had been repaired. The light no longer flickered. She stood there for a moment, remembering the cold, the fear, the way her foot had jammed into the bus door without her fully understanding why. Anna watched her. "You okay?" Maya nodded. "I was just thinking." They walked on. On Sunday afternoons, they visited Evelyn at her estate, not as guests who didn't belong, but as family who did. Evelyn never made speeches. She asked about school. She asked what Maya was reading. She listened. Once, Maya saw a framed photo on Evelyn's desk. 2 soldiers, one smiling, one alive. "That's Grandpa," Maya said. Evelyn nodded. He never knew how far his courage traveled. Maya reached into her pocket, feeling the familiar shapes there, the dog tags, and the quarter. She didn't spend it. Some things weren't meant to be used. That night, as snow fell softly outside the window and the heat hummed steadily through the apartment, Maya lay in bed, safe and full and unafraid. She didn't know what kind of future waited for her. She only knew this. A single choice, made without expecting anything back, had echoed forward, and it was still echoing. Maya kept the quarter in the front pocket of her backpack. Not in her wallet, not in the little jar on her dresser where loose change went. This one stayed with her, flat and cool against the fabric, like it needed to travel. One afternoon in early spring, she sat on the steps outside the apartment building, waiting for her mom to lock up. The air was warmer now. Kids rode bikes down Pine Street. Someone laughed from an open window. Life moved forward in small, ordinary ways. Maya reached into her pocket and took the quarter out. It wasn't special. No shine, no year worth remembering, just a worn coin with smoothed edges, the kind people barely noticed when it dropped into a cup or rolled under a couch. She turned it over in her fingers. She remembered the weight of it that night, the way it felt heavier than it should have, like it carried every decision she'd ever watched her mother make. Every time they'd gone without, so something else could survive. She remembered the bus door, the driver's hand on the lever, the moment she didn't think, just moved. Maya flipped the quarter into the air. It caught the sunlight, spun once, twice, then dropped back into her palm. "Ready?" Anna called from the doorway. Maya closed her fingers around the coin. "Yeah." She slipped it back into her pocket and stood up. They walked down the steps together, past the repaired railing, past the building that was no longer falling apart. Maya didn't know where she was going yet. School, college, somewhere else entirely. But she knew where she'd been. And she knew this. Sometimes the smallest thing you give is the thing that changes everything. The quarter stayed with her, not as money, as proof. If this story stayed with you, don't let it end here. Leave a comment and tell us what moment moved you most. Like the video if it touched your heart, and subscribe to Soul Strength Stories for more stories where small choices change everything. Because you never know, the next story might remind you of the strength you didn't know you had.